Thanks very much, Jack. Thank you, Councillor Merry, as well. When he was first appointed as a councillor in 1990 in Broughton, was when I started my newly qualified teacher status at Marlborough Road. So I've been around 30 years as well, John. The role we currently do at the School Sport Partnership, we've been working with and supporting schools for over 20 years. We are qualified and still practicing teachers, and the role we do probably still happens because we're respected by schools. Now, I'm going to try and keep my presentation short because I think it's far more important that you listen to what Jude and Ross are saying. And Jude and Ross are just two of the schools that are doing some tremendous work that we just try and help nudge along. And I'm also conscious that on this conference, there are colleagues from other areas of Greater Manchester who do similar work to us. For instance, I've noticed there's colleagues from Stockport on, the County Sport Partnership are represented. So although again we're talking about Salford, a lot of this work is replicated in other areas as well. The picture of me that you can see on your screen at the minute, apart from I don't like the place it's taken at, is actually a picture of the Euro trophy for the women's football that should be happening. Now, just as one very quick example before I get into my slides, when we first tried to do girls football, I had 5 schools wanted to take part across the city. Last year, just before lockdown, we ran events with 56 schools participating. Now that's just one sport, one thing, those types of things need to be built over years. And that day, we actually took pupils from Primrose Hill and St Boniface, and they got to meet Phil Neville and so on and so forth. It was a fantastic day for those young people. Now that, as I say, that's just one example. So if I can have my first slide, please. I've always wanted to say that. Now, the presentation we've provided is not actually a presentation, it's a report. It's what we've been up to for the last 6 months or so, the last 8 months probably. And this has gone out to key partners that we work with, just so people can see what's going on. But what it does do is give a flavour of the day-to-day work. So I'm assuming these will be passed out at the end of today, and people can see. So what my intention is to talk generally through the 4, I've only got 4 slides, and then sum up what we see as the key priorities and the key pointers to where schools have had success. So the likes of Ilham and Dowd and Peel Hall who are speaking today, as I've already said, countless other schools we could have had present. So slide 1 kind of sums up how we remained active during lockdown. And I don't know if anybody else has got a step tracker on the phone, but I've done 132 steps this morning, which is ridiculous, which is just going backwards and forwards to the loo and grabbing a brew. So it shows how sedentary probably 150 people are being today. So that massive challenge there. So what we were trying to do over lockdown, and what we do all the time, is make resources easy to access for individuals, easy to access for schools, being simple in our communication and making the right offers. So a lot of the work we do is in consultation with schools. Now, one example that's on the screen there is the Move With programme, which is a physical literacy programme that was funded by Public Health. Now, we wrote that programme over 10 years ago, but we still have 5,000 pupils in Salford schools doing that programme now. So that's something that has had a long-lasting effect. What we had to do in lockdown was we had to look at how that can be delivered in a socially distanced way, because at that time we were delivering to key worker children and so on. And again, the landscape in schools is changing massively. Can I have my next slide, please? Right, so we are there to offer schools professional development and support. That's what we do as a School Sport Partnership. Schools have so many calls on their time, and what we want to do is make the 2 things of delivering good physical education and physical activity easier for them. That is what we are all about. And again, if we just give one reality of the situation in schools about at the moment, the school I'm based in, which is All Hallows, where I've been for 20 years, at the moment, the pupils don't move in the day. The teachers do. The pupils are sat in one classroom for the day and the teachers move around to them. So the importance of finding ways to keep our young people active have never been more magnified. I might have meant to mention it later on, but there's a couple of things there in terms of how we reward schools. But through the virtual program we've been doing this term, we've managed to get some quite interesting numbers of participation, and I might talk about that in a minute. Can you move on to my next slide, please? Right, this is the red slide. This is what's not happening, or actually what didn't happen between March the 23rd and schools going back. And what I don't want people to do is get fixated on the numbers. So for example, there's 127 school fixtures didn't happen. And people might think, oh, well, that's the best kids against the best kids. But we run events in everything to target all young people. So we had 44 different events didn't happen. I have over 1,000 medals in my office that we didn't give out, which would have gone to all kinds of young people in terms of promoting positive physical activity. So that's just one example of what didn't happen, but it's also an example of what's normally happening day to day in all our schools. I'm just checking I've not missed anything out I want to say about that slide. And so when you hear from Jude and Ross shortly, what you'll see is how what we do is built into the ethos of their schools. So that's pretty much the point I wanted to make there. Can I have my final slide, please? So what we want to do is recognise that it's difficult now, but these schools have been on a journey for years and continue to do so. So the challenges I talked about before, the figures there quote about things we do. But for example, Joe Wicks constantly gets mentioned, and I understand why. But it's so much more than about Joe Wicks. And I'm happy to say he's not a physical education teacher. He's about physical activity. And a lot of what we do is around making sure there is good physical education in primary schools. A lot of what we do is around offering professional development to support schools to ensure that happens. So in terms of our events, interestingly, again, trying to keep it to what would normally be happening. Normally we would run sports or athletics. That's a fully inclusive programme for all young people in Salford. And a lot of the schools come, we host it in Earlham, we have a week of it in Earlham. And every child in the class comes and takes part in that and enjoys it. Now, in a normal year, we might get 32 schools take part. This year, we've had to run it virtually. And we've had over 2,140 results submitted. And we've had nearly 40 schools do it. So we've actually reached different young people by doing that. And we've had some really good case studies of young people who wouldn't normally have had the chance to do that. In the personal challenges that we've given out, which you might think are like kind of the Joe Wicks types of things, if we want to use him, we've had over 4,800 young people take part. And the Daily Mile, which is a fantastic example, across Greater Manchester, we've been running a virtual mile. And I've had the times ranging from 6 minutes something to 13, 14 minutes of 1,867 young people. Now, again, I'm just throwing examples at you now, but the Daily Mile, we were the first authority in Greater Manchester to introduce that. Elaine Wiley came down and presented to all our heads and interested people. We got it in schools. Now, I went to deliver medals this week. I know St. Teresa's are on this call. I went to deliver medals to St. Teresa's because their year 6 boys had got the fastest times. Now, they've been doing the Daily Mile since it started. Now, when I arrived at the school, the year 1 young children were running around that school doing the Daily Mile. And so what that does, if you take me off my presentation and just put me on, if that's all right, please. You able to do that, or do you need the last one on? Right, well, that's going to be due, so we can leave that up because my picture's at the back of there looking a lot younger as well. So in summary, what has been successful and what continues to be successful in Salford schools, and it's never ending. I call it the Fourth Road Bridge syndrome. We get to the end in training sport teaching, you've got to start again. Is some of the key things we found is support from senior leaders. You have to have the buy-in from your head teachers and your senior leaders and your governors. You need an individual inside your school driving the agenda, whether that's a Jude Scrutton, a Ross Sutherland, a Caroline Lightfoot, or whoever. That they are our community champions. Those are the people. You have to work with your communities, and that includes your clubs, everything Salford Community Leisure provides, your voluntary sector, the professional clubs, and obviously, as been mentioned many times today, with the families. And most importantly, what we do is offering opportunities for all pupils. And there's been a lot of talk this morning about how you go about doing that. Ours is very much around nudging behaviour. We didn't say you must do the Daily Mile. We said this is a really good idea. Listen to what this person's got to say and you can put it in your schools. And I think we're at over 50 schools do the Daily Mile still regularly. So that kind of nudging schools in the direction of things that can help is pretty much what we're about. So hopefully, Jack, when you asked me to speak, that's what you wanted. And I've only stuck to me 10 minutes and we're now in a position to move on to you.